Number 10. Herb Baumeister. Despite racking up a considerable number of victims in his killing spree, Herb Baumeister isn't what you might call a household name, likely because he committed suicide as investigators closed in. Despite a history of bizarre behavior, including schizophrenia, Baumeister became quite wealthy off of a chain of thrift stores he founded. With this fortune, he bought an 18-acre estate outside of Indianapolis. It was at this residence that he committed many of these crimes after picking up young gay men at bars and bringing them back to meet their demise. When authorities searched the home, they recovered the charred remains of 11 of his victims. Number 9. William Aikens. Pulitzer Prize winner Conrad Aikens' family was originally from New England, but moved to Savannah, Georgia, where his father became a respected surgeon. The family was living comfortably, but Conrad's father was already showing signs of a severe mental disorder and/or illness. It culminated on February 17, 1901, when Conrad was just 11. He heard his parents arguing in the other room, which was then followed by 2 succeeding gunshots. Upon investigating, Conrad found both his parents' bodies lying dead on the floor. It turns out that the father shot his mother before turning the gun on himself. Years later, paranormal investigators would explore the property looking for a ghostly presence. All reports concluded that, without a doubt, there were supernatural entities still living within the home. Number 8. Anthony Sowell. Anthony Sowell's criminally violent behavior appeared at an early age compared to other killers. At age 11, Sowell raped his niece. Some years later, he went on to have a decorated career in the Marine Corps, but his vice caught up to him after returning to civilian life when he assaulted a female visitor to his home. This offense earned him 15 years in prison for attempted rape. Upon release in 2005, he dated the niece of Cleveland's mayor for several years. She would always complain about the putrid smell coming from Sowell's home. As it turns out, this odor was the result of 11 mutilated victims left rotting inside the home. They were found after a woman was raped by Sowell in 2009. He currently languishes on death row, a well-deserved punishment for a repeated offender. Number 7. Glensheen Mansion. Glensheen is a beautiful Jacobean mansion overlooking Lake Superior. It was built in 1905 by a man named Chester Congdon, a man who made his fortune in the mining industry. Upon his death, the property went to his one and only daughter, Elizabeth. She had adopted 2 children, one of which, Marjorie, was diagnosed as a sociopath early in life. Years passed until one day Elizabeth Congdon was found bludgeoned to death by a candlestick in one of the mansion's many bedrooms. It was believed that Marjorie was involved in some way with the murder because, let's not forget, she would inherit $8 million upon her mother's passing. But for some unknown reason, she was acquitted of the crime. In 1978, Marjorie's second husband, Roger Caldwell, was convicted of murder. Number 6. Andrea Yates. For the most part, we all get our greatest comfort and joy from our mothers. So, when we hear of a woman killing her children, we are quite perplexed as to why someone would do such a thing. On the 20th of June, 2001, a woman with a dark past of mental illness drowned all 5 of her children in a bathtub. Most people out there try to find a little nest, a home in which no murders have taken place. But for Peter Mueller, this just wasn't the case. He bought the Texas property 3 years after the incident for $87,000. Number 5. Kreischer Mansion. Just looking at the Kreischer Mansion is enough to give you the creeps. It is a Gothic Victorian residence that radiates a dark overcast. It was built in 1984 by a German brickmaker named Edward Kreischer, who later committed suicide at the home when the family business was in a steep decline. If that wasn't enough, back in 2005, the mansion's caretaker was murdered by a member of the Bonanno crime family. He initially intended to strangle the man, but the victim broke away. After catching up with him, the mobster stabbed him, then killed the caretaker by submerging his head in a swimming pool. The corpse was then chopped into little pieces and burned in the mansion's furnace. Locals say that the Kreischer Mansion is teeming with ghosts. The most vocal is said to be Edward Kreischer's widow, who has been heard weeping. Number 4. Jeffrey Dahmer. Serial killer and cannibal Jeffrey Dahmer took the lives of numerous individuals at several different locations. This included his grandmother's house. He was eventually kicked out after complaints of men arriving at all hours of the day and wretched smells originating from his bedroom. A majority of his killings occurred at a Milwaukee apartment of his. He would often drug men with sleeping pills, then dissect them. Much of their delicate meats were eaten, but he also immersed torsos in a 57-gallon drum of acid. Number 3. The Manson Family. On August 9, 1969, members of the infamous Manson family took to the streets on a quest for blood. They arrived at the house of Rudy Atobalis, a talent agent close to Sharon Tate. With orders from Charles Manson himself to make the scene as gruesome as you can, his followers slaughtered the young actress by repeatedly stabbing her 16 times, who was also pregnant at the time. 4 others were also killed. The word pig was written on the front door in blood. Today, a new structure stands in its place, owned by Jeff Franklin, the man best known for co-creating Full House and Malcolm in the Middle. Number 2. John Wayne Gacy. John Wayne Gacy's Illinois home was known throughout the neighborhood during the height of his killing spree. Neighbors would gag due to the stench of rotting bodies that wafted from his residence, yet no one informed the authorities. When his own wife questioned the odor, Gacy merely said that they had dead mice in the crawl space. Beneath their house lay the buried remains of 26 young men. Other bodies filled the garage and backyard. 16 years after the first body was found, Gacy was executed by means of lethal injection on May 10, 1994. His last words were, "Kiss my." Number 1. Lizzie Borden. Lizzie Borden was born on July 19, 1860. She was tried and acquitted for the horrific axe murder of both her father and stepmother at their home in Fall River, Massachusetts. Despite the severity of the crime and its criticism by the public, the state decided not to press any charges at a hearing, even though there was overwhelming evidence connecting Lizzie to the murders. Prior to the suffrage movement, women were thought of in the court of law as inferior to a male, and certainly incapable of such an act. The crime scene has now been turned into a popular New England tourist attraction, the Lizzie Borden Bed and Breakfast. Like these top 10 videos? Subscribe by clicking the annotation here, and give our video a like. Have an idea for a future top 10? Leave a comment in the section below.